Today I'm catching fish with Stillwater fly fishing legend Phil Rowley, learning how to recognize where fish are feeding, how to react to changing conditions through the day, and how to recognize when it's time to tie on a dry fly and go for some exciting surface strikes.
This is the fun of Stillwaters. You're given a puzzle to solve, right? And you're given lots of little pieces as far as seeing fish move, seeing bugs flying by. We have got mayfly duns starting to pop around. I can see the odd one, and we've got fish coming up and eating them. So I'm going to a dry fly. And that was well done because a fish just came up and ate my dry. Yes, not a happy fish. Love it when a plan comes together. There we go. Nice little head-tail rise. Love it when they jump. There we go. Beautiful classic head-tail rise. The day is warming. The winds are dropping a little bit right now. I've got the jacket off because it's getting too hot, and put a small Chironomid pupa on because it's hard to see, but there is lots of Chironomids flying around. They look like mosquitoes, and the trout feed heavily on the pupal stage. Chironomids trap gas underneath their skin, their exoskeleton, that helps them come up to the surface and hatch, and that makes them very shiny, and the fish kind of key in on that brightness as it reflects light. As the hatch progresses, I might change to sort of more brighter patterns, but see if we can get a pull down on this. I'm sure they'll take them because trout eat so many Chironomids throughout the season, so always a good bet, particularly in early spring when the hatches are heaviest. They're the first bug to come off. They're the most prolonged bug, so anytime you get that water temperature starting to peak in the high 40s into 50 Fahrenheit, that's your temperature trigger for your hatches to occur on these productive lakes. And it's always Chironomids, Calabatus mayflies if they're on. There we go. Damsels, caddis, and dragons, kind of smallest to biggest. And Chironomids are definitely working. So what I might do, if I can remember, if I'm fortunate enough to land this fish, is do a little throat pump to see if they have in fact changed from that small zooplankton feeding we saw earlier in the day and now turning on to these emerging Chironomids, because typically as the day warms, the water temperature might pop a little bit, and that's the trigger to get these things going. And these Chironomids, once they start to hatch here, they're probably going to be on the menu from early May, soon after ice off, late April, depending on the year, right through until July. And of course, when fish have been on that food source for that long, you can probably get fish on Chironomids in here, even though they're not necessarily hatching in any great numbers, in September. Almost had him. Nope. Get his head up into the net. All right, that's a little bigger fish actually. This guy's doesn't miss too many meals. So the fly, beauty of a small Chironomid hook, is barbless as it just pops right out. So we'll just get that out of harm's way. We will moisten our hands so we don't remove any protective slime. We will prepare the float pump. We will turn the fish upside down. That tends to calm them. Whoa, having said that, Couldn't see much go up there, but we'll get that landing net in the water to support them. And let that sun give them some water, give them a chance to rest. The beautiful spots on that. Pretty fish. Fat and healthy too. Off he goes. So still on the zooplankton, not a sign of a chironomid pupa. But like me and jelly beans and Smarties and peanuts and chocolate chip cookies and other things I probably shouldn't eat. I see one, I eat one. Oh, that had a little wrinkle around it, a little dimple. There we go. Well, they'll eat chironomids. Tell you what I'm thinking. Oh, he's gone. Whoa! What I'm thinking about doing, and that might be the opportunity, is behind us here. There are fish moving all over the shoals. So for a change of pace, I might break out my floating line. It's got a shorter leader on it, and put a little calabatus nymph on and see if I can get one of those fish. Because the wind's also swirling around, and actually casting out the other side right now is probably a little wiser. So the wind's changed a little bit. We were fishing off the drop off on this side. The wind's done a 180 on us. Now the wind's at our back. Always want to try and work with the wind, not against it. So I've switched up to a floating line. I've got about 12 feet a leader down to about 4x, 5 pounds. It's clear here, and these fish are over the shoals here. This is the grocery store of the lake. This is where the majority of the food sources live, and we've got fish, really subtle swirls that are indicative of them feeding on chironomid pupas. They come up to the surface. They, you don't see their head or anything. You just see a swirl or maybe the dorsal fin. They're taking something just underneath the surface. You get the odd aggressive rise. That's usually indicative of them eating something a little bigger, a little more mobile. So we've had some calabatus activity, mayflies. So they could eat that too. So I've just got a floating line here with about a 12-foot leader and about a size 12 black dealback, a very simple nymphy pattern, generic, representative of a mayfly nymph. And I'm just casting it out, kind of letting it swing around, playing with the sink times, 5 seconds, 10 seconds. It's only literally 4 or 5 feet or less in there. So I don't want to cast long, because with this slow hand twist retrieve I'm doing, it'll just sink to the bottom and I'll catch in the weeds. So I'm trying to keep this fly up near, because the one thing the surface feeding fish are going to tell you is the fish are up. They're in the upper portion of the water column. So if you keep your flies up there, again, depth being a critical thing to consider when you fly fishing lakes, getting your flies where the fish are feeding. In this case, they're just at or just below the surface, so I want to keep my flies up there if I can. I may even take some floatant and grease the leader, literally make the leader float to the final tippet section to help keep the flies up. That's the tippet section. And I've got about a 7.5 foot tapered leader, and I'm just putting floatant all the way from the fly line, even onto the fly line a little bit. Okay. So all I'm trying to do is slow the sink rate of my presentation, because these fish are up near the surface, and I'm fishing shallow too. So I want to make sure that what I'm doing, I can keep my flies up off the bottom. Because if you get below these fish, they're not going to see your fly. So these fish are kind of surface orientated in here. They're seeing ascending pupa and the odd mayfly nymph come up. So we want to try and keep our flies literally probably within the top 1 to 2 feet for sure. Most organisms, whether it's a mayfly nymph, a damselfly nymph, even an emerging chironomid pupa, they'll move and wiggle a little bit, move, and then they got to take a break. Like us, we walk a bit, we got to take a break. And then so it's a lot of times it's slow is better. because they're not, you know, there's nothing down there with a rocket pack on, that's for sure. So they're moving slowly. And we want to do that, but it's usually a stop-start kind of thing. So move it, pause it, move it. When it comes to retrieves, we're playing with 4 variables. The length of the pull, there we go, fish on. That was a nice take, I like that take. It zips out of hand. So the 4 variables, the length of the pull, the speed at which you're making the pull, the cadence or tempo I call it, so it could be maybe 3 turns and a pause, or a long strip and 2 turns and a pause, and then the pause itself, because these trout are sight feeders, so they see the movement of your fly, they latch onto it, start to follow it, go through their check as to whether they want to eat it, and then when the fly pauses, they have the advantage to pounce. So that's when a lot of takes occur, is as the pounce comes on. So what we're going to do, is if I'm fortunate enough to land this thing, is do a little throat sample and see what the heck they are eating on in there. Ooh, we got feeding. All right. So let's hold them up. Beautiful markings. 3, 2, 1. Off you go. So we got the vial half full. I can see Chironomid pupa in here, but I'm just going to suck up some water and squirt it out. You can see all those Chironomids in there. Those are Chironomid pupa. So a throat pump can tell you what the trout are feeding on, what size they're feeding on, what color, if they're actively feeding, because if the food sources in here are moving and wiggling, what we're doing is we're just sampling the esophagus, the things they just ate. We're not going way down here, right, what they ate hours ago. We want what they're eating just now. So some of these things are moving and wiggling around, and it also tells you the depth. So when you link that with your basic understanding of entomology, there are pupa in here, and there's a few little bits of shucks and other things, food source, stuff that they would get near the surface. So that tells you, as we suspected, they're feeding near the surface. We've also got those rise forms. That's another good clue as well. But if this was, for instance, full of Chironomid pupa, the larval stage we call bloodworm, maybe some damselfly nymphs, things that live near the bottom, that tells you the fish are near the bottom. That's where you should be presenting your flies. Most times, you want to be a foot or 2 off the bottom. But Corbett here is, these fish are very surface orientated, so we could even get them on some dry flies later as well, or mergers. And I think I'm going to change up from this fly to a really small, unweighted Chironomid pupa, as small as I can find, grease that leader again, and see if that is more successful. Although we made 4 or 5 casts and got 1 take and landed 1, so it's not exactly the worst results. Look at that. Yet there is a couple of pupa that escaped on me. Just push that in. That's not so bad, is it? So that's pretty good.
Yeah, okay.
Let's see if this works. So I was going to put on this size 18, and I downsized my tippet a little bit, and as we're doing that, we have got mayfly duns starting to pop around. I can see the odd one. There's 2 or 3 right in front of me here, and we've got fish coming up and eating them, so I'm going to a dry fly. We don't get to do that much in lakes. Most of our presentations are subsurface, because that's where the majority of the feeding is taking place, but if I can get them on a dry, I'm going to try it. Good old parachute Adams. Fish just rose literally 2 feet from the boat. So we've got fish, you can tell they're feeding on something different because the rise forms are more aggressive. Mayfly is a bigger bug. The rises I was seeing earlier were subtle little swirls eating tiny or small Chironomid pupa, but once I see the odd big fish coming around, so I've got the same leader set up. I've probably got 12, maybe 14 feet because we're clearer water. Don't want to get any longer than that because you're less accurate. So when we fish dries on lakes, we're not just going to pitch it out there and hope the fish finds it. I'm going to put the fly out there 10, 20 seconds. Nothing happens, pick it up, put it somewhere else, because quite often as soon as that fly lands, that's when you get the grab. The fish with their lateral line, senses that fly going splat on the surface and comes and eats it. So we're just going to spray around, cover likely looking water, try to make, this is where your casting comes in. You don't want to be making sloppy, slap the water casts. You want to be able to turn this fly over neatly and get a nice delicate presentation because you can spook fish. We put some floatant on there. So let's give it a bash. So I've got that on there. Ooh. Cast it out. And I can let it sit for a few seconds. Now if a fish rises, I will try and put it on there. We've got a little breeze. One of the ways is figuring out which way to go. So trout, whether they're in rivers or streams, like current. They like to orientate themselves, face into the current. So if we see a fish rise in this ripple, I'm going to cast upwind of it, assuming the fish is cruising upwind in that current. And there's nothing wrong, even though these mayflies are just drifting with the wind-induced current, I've given the eye the odd little strip to create a little wake and movement, because that can attract, the fish can see that, come over and go, ooh, that looks food-like. And the big thing, of course, if I get a take, is to actually reduce my, don't strike like you're on an indicator, because the fish is going to come up, put its mouth over the fly and take it on the way down, and you've got to let them do that. So some of the tricks are count to 2, or it was God Save the Queen. I guess it's God Save the King now. Another trick you can do is hold your rod tip a little higher off the water, which puts a little controlled slack in. So by the time you raise the rod enough to take that slack out, you've allowed enough time for that fish to take the fly. Oh, he rolled on it and I missed. I pulled away. See, I got excited. Got some wind gusts coming in here, so one of the things fishing in windy places like Argentina taught me is you don't have to cast every minute of every day. So as these gusts come through, I'm just gonna stay calm, and that was well done, because a fish just came up and ate my dry. Yes, not a happy fish, jumping all over the place. Love it when a plan comes together. Got a beautiful fish here. Got that Adams right in the side of the jaw. So exciting when that happens. So one of the things when you're fishing dries and you just caught a fish is, of course, your dry fly is going for a swim and it gets saturated and doesn't float as well. So I'm going to show you how to recharge a dry. So I've got my Adams here, and blow it off. This is amadou. This is a natural fungus, more so on CDC, but you can come in and just pat the fly and that removes moisture away as well. So I've done my best to dry it off. And then I can take a powder desiccant, like this Easy Dry, and just literally, the fly's still on the leader. I drop it in, close the lid, give it a little shake, open the lid, you don't want to damage the leader, and that's going to dry the fly out as well. So now the fly is dry, and then we're just going to come in and apply more floatant. So I'm going to put a little bit of floatant onto my finger, my body heat liquefies it, and I'm just going to pat this onto the fly, pinching and patting the parts of the fly I want to float. So the beauty of a parachute Adams is I could apply floatant to just the wing and hackle, and then the body will sit a little lower in the water and maybe suggest an emerger. But we've seen them eating the duns, so I'm applying the floatant to everything, and this fly is recharged and ready to go. Okay, fly is on the water. Oh, fish roll, see? Right there. Across the surface. There we go. Nice little head tail rise. Love it when they jump. Of course, they're in skinny water, so they can't run deep. There we go. Beautiful classic head tail rise. I just about missed it. Really cool.
Special thanks to our host, Corbett Lake Lodge, located just outside Merritt, BC. Thanks for watching. Subscribe if you liked the video, and if you want to keep learning more, watch one of these videos right here.